The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm a proud pony. That's a parent of a neurodiverse individual. Those are the words that my son has given me to describe my relationship to his diagnosis. And I know everybody has their different words. We welcome everybody to use the words that are comfortable for you. Those are the words we use. Hopefully that's okay. And we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We've got an amazing show for you today. We do parent to parent from time to time, and we really, good morning, happy Wednesday, Michelle. We've been talking all morning about how it's very definitely hump day around here. We've got so much going on, you guys, between packing because we're getting ready to move and it's almost April. And we have our auction that's going on right now that the auction closes tomorrow night. And then if you win, you'll get a notification and then you pick it up on Sunday. I will be here on Sunday. You have set times to pick it up on Sunday to pick up yours. I'm looking at all the stuff as I'm speaking. So there's a lot going on and it's happy hump day today. So we're all feeling it today. But thrilled to be here because of this topic. I started to say we do parent to parent, and it's really driven by when a bunch of people write in and ask the same kind of questions. And I mentioned on Monday that it's IEP season, and then I got a glut of questions. And I thought, we've got a lot of shows, if you go on our YouTube channel, that you can check out about IEPs. But one of them that I don't think that we have done parent to parent, we certainly have had Bonnie Yates go through this with us about all the procedural things, but with the parent to parent, we're a little bit more like, here's how you're going to feel and here's what you need to know kind of thing, where you can get tripped up as a parent. It's slightly different conversation. So today we're going to be talking about the process of the IEP so that you understand, okay, so when this happens, this is what you need to know. And then when this happens, this is what you need to know, right? And this is how you might be feeling. And this is where you can get gummed up and tripped up. So we're gonna try to shed some light on that today. But before I do that, I want to let all of you know, as I said, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is going to show you at some point on the screen some of the different ways that you can be watching the show. Don't forget that we have a YouTube channel. We actually have two of them. Well, what am I saying? Two YouTube channels. One of them is Autism Live. One of them is Ask Dr. Doreen. And there's content that's 14 years old. So you can go back. I really encourage you, when you go to the channel, there's a little, there's a place where you can search all of YouTube, but there's a place where you can just search our channel and put in some keywords for you. And it will show up all the different shows that we've done on things. It'll be some very interesting shows. You might even see with my hair dark because when we first started the show, the first 2 years that we did the show, I was still dyeing my hair and then I gave up. We shaved my head is what happened. And it came in gray and I went, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. We're just going to let it be au naturel. So there's fun stuff that's on there. Check that out. But most of you are listening to the show, listening in podcasts, and that's a wonderful thing. We appreciate that. You know that you can get the podcast wherever they have free downloads, you can really get our podcast. If you find that's not true, will you let me know? Because that is my firm belief that we are. But if there's some place that I don't know about, please let me know. Because, things change, things are new and hip, and I am not. So let me know, key me in, and then we'll get it there for you. But when you download the free podcast, you're going to get advertisements. And I hope that's good for you because the reason why it's there is to make sure that that is free for you. So I hope you go, woohoo, I'm getting this for free. Thank you, sponsors. If that's not your bag, if that's not your jam, then please go over to glow.fm/autism live. For just $5 a month, you can subscribe and they will send you for that $5 a month everything we do on the Autism Network. That includes Autism Live. That includes Ask Dr. Doreen. It includes everything that we do. We put out a new show. Listen, in April, we are putting out some shows. Can I tell you? We've been pre-recording stuff that's blowing my mind. Hi, Rodney. So thrilled you're here. We've got some great shows in April. Plus, on Thursdays and Fridays, we're going to be premiering parent-to-parent talks all in Spanish. Yes. Thank you, Chris Desmond, who is a wizard. A wizard. So all that's happening. And if you want that all ad-free, glow.fm/autism-live, and you won't miss a single thing. It'll show up in your inbox. It's good for two things. You never miss a new show, and you're getting it ad-free. So there you go. $5 a month. Can't beat that. All right. So that's all of our things that are going on here. We're glad you guys are here. You know what I like to say, that we hold hands, we get there together. Si se puede, right? And this show and every show that we do on the Autism Network, we're really here. Our guiding words are to provide information and inspiration to the larger autism community. You guys know that starts with our beloved members of the autism community. They are the beating heart of our community. They're our big why, right? But we also include in that community everyone who loves those individuals, so that we're all fighting for the rights of those individuals. Very, very important rights and access and inclusion and acceptance. Yeah, all those things. So that's what we're all about here. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to do a parent-to-parent talking about the different processes of the IEP. It's really, what's going to happen so that you know at each phase what's important. So let's dive in here, shall we? It's more than 10. I always start out with 10, but then sometimes I have to add more to it. Okay, but let's start with my disclaimer that if we understood the process, then we can be more productive in creating the best educational experience for our child. Because an IEP, if we have a tight IEP, stuff happens that's good. I feel like it's one of those things, whenever you have to do something that involves a whole lot of work up front, but then the payoff is so great. I'm trying to think of like 5 examples of that, but there's all kinds of things. Like, when you're prepping a meal way before, and then you sit and enjoy the meal, and it's less work once you get it in the oven, right? But the prep took some time, but you got it all done and you get it in the oven, and then poof, dinner is there, right? Same kind of thing. If we can do the work, the heavy lifting at the beginning, make sure that we have the tight IEP, boy, the year sails and your child makes progress. Yeah, sometimes we have to do little adjustments, but if the IEP is tight, it's so much easier to do those adjustments during the year. So that means we have to understand the process. If we understand the process of what's going to happen at each point, we will get more done. And then your teen, your even adult will learn more during that year, because their time is valuable. Why would we waste a year? And listen, I've been in a circumstance where we had a year that didn't go well, and I really think of it as a wasted year. And it's worse than that, because in that year, the idiot stick teacher, I'm sorry, did I say that? Did that come out of my mouth? But really, sometimes I love teachers, former teacher here. Sometimes you get a teacher who's got a problem. And when I say to you, I believe firmly that this teacher had a problem, I mean it. And we tried, and we had a pretty good IEP, and we were working with this person. It didn't work out. And what I saw at the end of the year was not only did it waste a year of his time, it hurt his self-esteem. If I could do anything over, I would do that year over. And I would chuck her second weekend when I saw that she was going to be a problem. Instead, I make fun of her in my one-woman show. It's a little satisfying, but not enough, right? Because my son didn't get back that year. We had to do a lot of makeup to get him educationally where he would have been. But then we did years of stuff working on his self-esteem so that he knew that he was amazing, because she beat that idiot stick. There you go. All right. So this is our groundwork. If we understand the process, we're going to be more productive. Okay, let's get to our first one. You get the invite. Now, this is a critical moment, and a lot of people miss this. Did we want to go through these fast? I don't think so. Let's go through them slow. So you get the invite, and first of all, it's critical that you respond, right? You gotta respond to it. And a lot of times parents think, oh, well, they offered me a meeting on, Tuesday at 2:00, and I have an important standing meeting then, so I can't go to it. And they'll write back and say, I can't come to that meeting. And then the school will go, great, well, we'll hold it without you. No to the no, right? If the date and time that they have said to you that you have the meeting doesn't work, you write back and say that doesn't work. Please give me 2 other times. Or, keep in mind, I can take off work at this point, but put it in writing and get them to find a time that works for you. If they give you like 5 times and none of them work, they'll give up. They'll hold the meeting without you. And then they'll say that you didn't choose to come. Don't allow that to happen. You want to be at that meeting, right? So first of all, respond. And when you've set the date and the date is correct, you want to do 2 things to my estimation. 3, maybe. Okay. So the first one is you need to ask for all of the written reports if they're doing any testing. A lot of the people, if your child is either just starting or already in school, they're going to do some reports. Anything that's a written report, you ask in writing to have those in writing no later than 48 hours before the meeting. It's only fair. People go, I didn't know I could ask for that. You absolutely can ask for it. Here's the thing. Sometimes they will say no, and sometimes they just won't do it. They'll say, oh, okay, and then they don't do it. I have to tell you, all of them are okay. All the scenarios are okay. If you get them 48 hours before, the great thing is you get to sit and read the notes beforehand, and you can align your argument and know what you're asking for, and you move one step ahead because you already know what's happening. You know what they're going to be offering. It's really good if you get them beforehand. If they say no, ask for that in writing, and it becomes part of the timeline that you keep saying that they said no to this. And they may have a really good reason for saying no. They may say, we don't have enough time to do that. It's only 2 weeks away, and we're going to be pressed for time as it is. Okay, you can be a reason, but you note it in writing that you asked for it and you didn't get it. If they said yes, and then they don't provide it, you make sure that that gets included in the transcript because you are going to tell them when you respond to the invite, by the way, I will be exercising my right to record the meeting. Now, boy, do people get fatoots when I say this because they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to think that I'm a difficult parent. Yes, and that's exactly what you want them to think. There are lots of difficult parents. You're not the first one. They can't take it out on your child. And you know what they do I've been on both sides of the IEP table, guys. When they know that you're a difficult parent, all of a sudden they get much more concerned with crossing their T's and dotting their I's, which your child deserves. So let them know you're going to be that parent who's going to ask for your child to get everything that they deserve and legally are supposed to get. It's okay. They are not going to hate you. Right? I know. I worried about the same thing. Like, oh no, what if they don't like me? I just don't think that's going to happen. But even in the most extreme circumstance that it does happen, really, you care? Like if they're going to dislike you because you want what legally is appropriate for your child, you are never going to be friends with this person anyway. So, and that's not your job in this particular instance. Your job is to make sure that your child has an IEP, an individual education plan that takes into consideration their needs and is legally appropriate, right? Your job is not to be liked by these folks, but they know the drill. They're not automatically going to hold it against you, and you can be as nice as you want. I used to go in like Goldilocks with my little basket and my snacks and everything, and I was a pleasant person to their face. I did not let them get away with murder. And if they don't like that, I'm sure that there were people who disliked me and couldn't wait to see that back a side of me as my child was graduating. Okay, I didn't want to be friends with them anyway, right? So don't worry about that. Do tell them that you're going to record that in the invitation in your response. It doesn't mean you have to. When you get there, you don't have to. If you decide that, I thought my mic had moved. If you decide when you get there, and I've done this, where I go, okay, there's something sensitive I want to talk about, and I don't want to record it. It's up to you. But you don't have the right on the day of to decide that unless you have given them prior notice. Now, in some states, it's 24 hours. In some states, it's 48 hours. I don't remember which state. So I just say, make your life easier. Just say that you're going to record when you respond to the invite, because you have to respond to the invite, and then it's done. And then on the day of, you can do it or not. You can record on your phone, or you can, and if you do, they will also record. That is, it's going to happen. It's a done deal. I don't know what the word is I was looking for. But it's a no-brainer that if you record, they will record so that there are 2 different tape recordings. That's fine. Don't feel pressured or worried about that. Record on your phone, easy peasy. 2 times I got what we were asking for in an IEP because I had recorded. 2 times, maybe 3. So it's worthwhile. Here's the other thing. When you record, it stops shenanigans. Most of the time, not all the time, they're aware of the fact, okay, we're being recorded, so they don't say stupid stuff that they know is illegal. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. Sometimes there are people who are administrators because they weren't smart enough to be good teachers. Sorry. I know that there are wonderful administrators out there, but sometimes you run into those random people and they will say the really ridiculous thing into the tape recorder, and then you got them because they've said the ridiculous thing into the tape recorder. I remember sending off the email to the head of special services at one school and saying, I want to draw your attention to minute 23 and 12 seconds when your person says, and I quote, and then they came back and said, what is it you would like? Yes, sometimes when they pop off and say something ridiculous, it goes to our benefit. However, you have to be mindful of the fact that you don't get to pop off. Ever, even if there's no tape recorders running, but especially if there's tape recorders running, we as parents and as caregivers do not get to pop off in the IEP meetings. You gotta have enough self-regulation, and if you need to, you invite somebody to come and watch you and to suggest a break. You can ask for 22 different breaks. You can say, excuse me, can we take a 5-minute break? I need to step into the hallway to make a phone call. You don't even have to tell them. Just say, can we take a 5-minute break? And you go and do some deep breathing exercises or get somebody on the phone or whatever it is you have to do, but you do not pop off. You just can't, right? You can pop off in a letter. And I used to write letters. Oh my gosh. I wrote letters that I never sent, where I would say all the things that I wanted to say in the meeting. You don't get to say it in the meeting because that's not good for your kiddo. Okay. And in your invite, if there's anybody you're thinking about bringing to that meeting, it could be your best friend, right? It could be your support animal. It could be your advocate, your lawyer, whoever. If you're thinking about bringing them, include that in the invite. By the way, I will be bringing X person. You can bring as many people as you want to, but telling them in the invite ensures that they know if you're bringing your lawyer, they get to bring their lawyer, and they will. So I don't really recommend that out the gate. I usually say go to the first meeting, see if you can solve things, then have your lawyer come, because you're going to pay them, and plus, which if the school has to bring their lawyer, they have to pay them. Now they're in for a certain amount, and I think the first meeting, have other reinforcements. Have your best friend, have your significant other, whoever. But you need to tell them in the invite. Okay, now you got it done. Now that's done, and we wait to see what happens, right? Okay, let's go on to number 2. Okay, maybe you got your reports beforehand, and if you do, I encourage you to look through those. Either way, But between the invite and when you get in the room, I should have made another slide for this. I like to recommend the letter. And that's when, the night before, instead of being in all the stress and worry that we all are in before, you sit down and write a letter, and with the intent that this is what you're going to read later in the meeting. I'll talk about that in a second. But in that letter, you want to do two things. You want to detail anybody that you want to thank publicly for what they have done thus far. And that's a powerful thing. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Because if you call somebody, I know we all want to call out the idiot stick in the room, right? And sometimes there is one, right? We want to go, I just really want to tell you, you're not helpful to my child and you don't have can't do that, not effective. But if they are sitting there and you read a letter saying, I want to thank the person next to them for their kind consideration and over the top support, and you have been remarkable, and you say nothing about idiot stick, oh, they feel it. Oh, do they feel it? So praise, praise, praise. And put that in your letter, right? The other thing you put in the letter is anything that you are asking for. Anything that you're asking for, and you have bullet points. We are asking for this, and here is why. And we're asking for this, and here is why. And we're asking for this. And I don't care how many points you have. I've written letters. I think the highest I ever had was 13 points, right? And I've done letters where I had 2. For the coming year, this is what's most important to us and why. Include that. Short, but bullet points. Okay. Because you're going to read that later on. And then you get to sleep knowing you don't have to worry about what to say because all you're going to do is read that thing. Then the day comes and you get to be in the room. Now, this could be vastly different depending on how they do this at your school, because a lot of schools started doing this virtually when the pandemic hit, and they've just decided that they like it and that they're going to do this, and they've decided that it's easier and better for the parents. I got news for you. I don't think it is, right? We miss all kinds of things. So I would say to you, if you have the choice, and if they give you the choice, and if it doesn't put too big of a crimp in your schedule, be in the room. Don't do it virtually, because they have the ability to talk to each other behind your back when it's in the virtual room. If they don't give you the choice, do the virtual room. We can work around it. However, there are things that we want to do, whether it's in the room or the virtual room. If you are in the room, there's a really amazing lawyer who taught me a trick that he does this, because if you're in the room, what's going to happen is they all at the meeting time, they all get together in the room without you. You're out cooling your heels with your guests. And they're in the room and they're figuring out their strategy, right? Then they call you into the room, right? And it feels like you're going in front of the Inquisition because they're all there and you're the newcomer, right? So this lawyer taught me a trick that how you take charge of the room is that you come into the room with energy and you be the person who's speaking first. You make sure that you do all the introductions and that you find something in the room that it could be a pen or a tchotchke or something. This is evil, you guys, but it works. That let's say the person who has the highest status in the room, and you can usually tell who's running the meeting, right? That maybe they have like the pen that they particularly love. And the first thing you do is go, oh, can I borrow that pen for just a second? I just need to make a mark here. And you will see them get physically uncomfortable. And that's what you want. I know I said it was evil, but it's combating that what they've done is invited you into a room where they're making you feel like the outsider. And what you do is you come in and go, I'm in charge. By picking up something and it could be just a tchotchke that you pick up and go, oh, what a cute little glass. You would never do this, and you would yell at your children if they ever did this. But it is a way that you exert dominance and put them on their back foot. Now, do you have to do that? No. But at the very least, don't succumb to their game, which is that you're walking in the room and they're making you feel like the outsider, like they are the school, they are the team. I had somebody once, and the first thing that everybody will do if you're doing the recording is that you'll put the recordings on at the same time and you'll stop them at the same time. But I had somebody say to me right after we put the recording on, they said, well, as the team has met and we have decided, and I said, I'm so sorry. Was there a meeting that I wasn't invited to? Am I not on the team? I'm not sure that I understand what's happening here. And the person immediately was like, oh, I've said something horribly wrong and illegal, right? And I had it on recording. That didn't win things, but that put them on their back foot, right? You are on the team. If they talk about the team met, excuse me, you are on the IEP team. Don't let them get away with stuff. Judy says, Shannon, can you believe I have an 89 page of IEP on part 3? Coming up, each part was 2.5 hours. The Peels Center is great. I don't know the Peels Center, but yes, I can believe that you have an 89 page IEP and that it's taken 3 meetings. I absolutely can believe that, because sometimes when you're working for an airtight IEP and you have a team that wasn't really prepared to be with an airtight parent, yeah, that's what it takes. Absolutely. Good on you, Judy. You're getting it done. Amy says, we are in Indiana and the schools have been so good with the IEPs and assessments. And you know what? I love hearing that, Amy. I love hearing that. I will tell you, I'm cynical because sometimes that's true. And sometimes it's that the school has taken such beautiful and been kind and considerate and said, we're going to help you here and here's what we're offering you. And the parent doesn't realize that what they've been offered isn't a tenth of what they could be offered. So I just want to make sure that you have the good kind, and we do have school districts. I love Fullerton. Fullerton, California has amazing IEPs, and what the child needs is what the child gets, right? We're just across the board. They're working together with the parents and the teachers, and it's like, oh my gosh, it can happen. But there's a lot of places in the world where the truth of the matter is there isn't enough funding to do that. And the administrative team knows that, so they're trying to cut a corner with your child. It's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But Amy, I hope it's that you have the good kind. And some people do. That's amazing. Okay, so we want to exert dominance in the room. Now, if you're virtually, there are a couple of things that you can do. First of all, make sure that you can hear. I was at an IEP that was virtual recently with a mom who has a documented hearing issue, hearing impaired, right? And they had several of the people were sitting around one computer. So when they were talking, the computer microphone was directional and she couldn't hear several people. And repeatedly, I was advocating for her saying, you need to physically move the computer in front of the person who's speaking. Otherwise, she can't hear you. And they just kept forgetting, right? You have a right to hear everything that's going on in the room. And if side conversations are happening, you can say, guys, can we table the side conversations because I have a right to hear what's happening and I cannot hear. It will be frustrating for them, but that is the limitation of virtual, right? Don't let them be doing side meetings or if somebody's over talking somebody, make sure that you're advocating, right? I will say that the plus for us in the virtual room is that we also can be having side conversations. A lot of times, if I'm with a parent in an IEP meeting, I try to be as silent as possible, but I will be texting them saying, don't forget to bring up this. Don't forget, she says this, you say that, right? And there we are. So there are pluses and minuses to it, but it's important to take charge and not feel like you are the outsider in the room. That's the most important thing for this one. Okay, moving on to then at a certain point, if you've had the reports before, you will know that there's a whole section of the report that goes through the history of your child. Your child was born at this point, was healthy at this point, this happened, the diagnosis happened, and it does a whole report about your child, where they live, any trauma that has happened to them. A lot of times parents skip over this because we don't want to relive that, right? it's critical. Every time you get one of these reports, every time you get one of these IEPs, you need to proofread this thing. It's better to do it before because you have time to sit there, have all your feelings about it. And I used to sit there with Post-it notes that were different color arrows. And so I had one color that was for mistakes, one color for something that I wanted to add, right? I enjoyed that. That made me very happy if I have my stationery supplies. But don't let them leave a mistake in the history. If they say that your child was born and weighed 10 pounds and your child wore 8 pounds, make them fix it. Make them fix it. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it teaches them that you are reading their reports. And that is important because they put stuff in the reports all the time that is not accurate about your child, whether it's through a mistake or somebody deliberately, everything is possible. Make sure you go through the history. Make sure you make them fix anything that is inaccurate, especially the first time that my son went to an IEP, there was a person who had been working with my child before school. And she said in her report, Mom is not interested in him going to school. Now, that was inaccurate, right? I had already made the decision that for that year when he was 3, that we were going to maximize doing ABA. We had made that decision. We looked at the science and said, that's what we're going to do. But that didn't mean that I was uninterested in him going to school. That meant that I was prioritizing something else for this year in an effort to get him ready for school. I did not allow that to pass. You should not allow that to pass. That's a misrepresentation. And the truth of the matter is that report gets passed to people who don't know you. Years later, if I had left that in, he could have been in 4th grade and the teacher reads that and goes, oh, Mom doesn't like school. No. Anything that's even remotely inaccurate, you make them fix it. I make them fix when they misspell things. Listen, for a group of teachers and administrators who used to be teachers, when you point out their spelling errors, they cringe, but they know you're watching. And that's what you want them to know. Judy says, my district is not working with us. They give misinformation and do not give a true picture of my child. This is great information. Judy, I'm so sorry because this happens more often than I care to admit, right? But again, I want to point out to you that sometimes it's just somebody who's lazy, but that's really rare. Sometimes it's somebody who's such a control freak that they're like, we're doing it my way and I don't care. And that isn't as rare, but it's terrible. And you got to make a decision. Am I going to go toe to toe with this person? And you have to keep reminding yourself, it's not about beating them, right? Although we want to. When they're that horrible, we want to beat them. But you got to keep reminding yourself, I'm here to get what my child needs. And if this person is in the way, I'm going to work to push them, but it's not about beating them. They're about beating me, but I'm not making it about that, right? And then a lot of times when schools are doing this, it's because they don't have the funds. And I have had somebody stand there and say to me, well, if we give this aid to your child, it means the 2nd graders aren't going to get computers this year. And I said, what did you just say to me? Because that is illegal. That is illegal. But a lot of times it's what they're thinking. If we end up having to give this child what this parent is asking for, then we don't get this art program. And you know what? None of that is your business. None of that is your business. And you really got to be like advocating for your child because nobody else will, right? We all, I get hepped up talking about it because it's hard. And I'm so glad that I'm not in this space anymore, but I try to give back to the community and help whenever I can because I remember how hard it was. So history, make sure you get everything corrected. Let's go on because we're running late. Number 4, now we get to the part where we go in the IEP, they're going to go through the reports. Now, here's the great thing. If you got the reports beforehand, you can say to them, I've read the reports. I've gone through the reports. I'd like to accept the reports the way they are, or I'd like to call your attention to page 6, paragraph 3. There's a mistake here, or I have a question, or I'd like to add something, right? and you've got your little points and you go through and it's so much quicker, right? Otherwise, what will happen is they will go around the table and each person will go, okay, so in this report, and they'll read a part of it and they'll say what the recommendation is. You won't be able to learn it on the fly. You'll want to sit there and read the report, and you need to at some point read the report because a lot of times what they're saying doesn't match what it says in the report. You know what I mean? It's a lot, but sometimes you have no choice because they got it to you. But this is the ideal time, if they are handing it to you right now, to say loud enough so that the tape recorders hear, I would like to note for the recording that I did ask for these 48 hours before. You weren't able to comply with that. So now I need to take a minute and read through and and do what you need to do. I always said to the team, I do not learn through you talking. I read and I learn. So you talking, I'm not going to get 9/10 of what you say. That is how I learn. And that was just, how we would go. But allow yourself, at the end of this, we're not going to sign, but allow yourself the time to read what you need to read, to ask the question, what do you mean by this? Why do you have these, two statements that contradict each other? It's so much easier when you can sit at home with your fuzzy slippers and read through it several times. Sometimes I have a friend read through it and go, am I crazy? It says this and it says this. These two things don't go together, right? Anna says, I have always provided my ABA reports to show then he is capable of doing and aligning my ABA and schooling goals. That's a wonderful idea, Anna. I didn't even include that in this. But if you have ABA reports to support what you are asking for, 100% have them with you, because that's a very effective tool. Okay. So the reports, but if you haven't read them before, they're going to go through all of them. It's tedious. I hate the part. I don't know. I hate the part where at the beginning of every report, they have a very set, listen, I had to do this as a teacher, right? That they always have the teacher give the child compliments first and go, oh, we love your child because your child is so, fill in the blank, fill in the blank, fill in the blank. And then they will turn around and say, all the things that your child is doing. It feels so fakey fake to me. Some people love it. It makes me break out into hives. Let's go on to number 5. So now we're at the point when they've read the reports. Now we're going to go through the proposed offer of FAPE. This has many different elements to it. So we're going to go through most of the elements right here, right now. So let's go ahead and go on to number 6. This is why we ended up having more than. So usually on the report, the first part that they jump into is goals. This is not always the case, but usually they jump into goals, and you'll see that there are many different categories, and they'll be numbered. Like if it says social skill, it'll say SOC, 1 of 4. So you get an idea of how many goals that they have in each of the domains. But there are a couple of things that you want to note on the top page before you get to the goals, which is somewhere on that page, it's going to tell you, there's a box that says BIP attached. If your child has a behavior intervention plan, that box needs to be checked. If it's not a part of this legal document. So that's just a checkpoint, right? If your child doesn't have a behavior intervention plan, my question is your child having any behaviors? Because if they're having behaviors, there should be a behavior intervention plan and the box should be checked. Okay. But you will see in the goals, sometimes they have behavior goals. So, and they'll say, oh, we don't need a BIP because we have the goals. I beg to differ. But if that's the case, I want to look at the goals and see, are they aligning with what you would get in a BIP? Because in a BIP, they would say, here's the behavior, here's the function of the behavior, here's what we're going to teach the child, here's what we're going to do before the behavior happens to prevent the behavior from happening. And probably the most important in a school setting is, here is the consequence. If we weren't able to do all those things and the behavior happened anyway, here is the consequence for the behavior. And this is where you keep your child safe. Because if the consequence does not say anything negative, then they can't do anything negative to your child. But there are other goals that are within these goals. I think it's really important. If you can get these beforehand, it's really important to have a minute to read through these. I always like to see where the level is that the child can do now and what the benchmarks are for, because usually they say the child by this time next year will be able to do this. So that means that in 9 months, they'll be able to do this, which means in 6 months, they'll be able to do this. In 3 months, they can do, and here's what they can do right now. But what you will find sometimes is that there will be a goal. And then when you read, where is the child right now? You go, wait a second, that sounds exactly like the goal. And you will find out that it pretty much is. And that's not what we want from goals. We want substantive goals. We don't want them to, in a year, we don't want to waste a year for them to basically be doing what they're doing. The example I always give is the first IEP that Jem had. It was pages and pages of goals for things that he could already do. And I said, what is, and they were hotly wanting me to come bring him at 3 to preschool. And I said, you don't have a single goal in here that he can't already do. And the kid is behind. Like, what are we doing? And they said, yeah, but he can't do it with other children around. And I went, oh, if I had any doubt that you were not the people for him to spend the year with, it has now been confirmed for me, right? You have to waste a whole year to just be able to do the things you can, because these are the goals they're responsible for. They are responsible for teaching your child these goals. So take a minute with the goals. And if you're working with an ABA provider, have them look at the goals and think about in your wish list of things, what is it you want your child to be learning? And don't be afraid to go into them and say, I want a goal about this. I want a goal about socializing during lunchtime. What's great about that, you'll note on the goals page, is that it says who's responsible for taking the data to see that it's getting done, who's responsible for teaching, who's responsible for putting in the benchmarks. If you have a goal that's happening during lunchtime, guess what? There has to be somebody keeping an eye on them during lunch. Because a lot of times they're like, oh, we have all this support in the classroom, and then they go to lunch and there's nobody assigned, right? And we want our kids to have social goals and be successful during playtime and lunchtime. That's how you do it. There's a goal there, and then suddenly somebody has to be there. Okay. So look through the goals and don't be afraid to ask them to add a goal. I happen to love the skills program because you can, let's say, you have something that you want your child to learn. You can go into skills and you can type in what it is you want your child to learn. It will show you the lessons. Then you click on the lesson that you want. And then there's a button that you push saying, give me the IEP benchmark. And they put it out in the language that the school does. And you go in and go, I'd like this goal. And they go, where did that come from? I know, I've been there when they do that. But you can ask for it. There's no reason why you can't ask for it. They will rewrite that goal and that lesson within an inch of its life, but that's okay. That's okay. They will feel threatened. I'm okay with that. Number 7, it makes it sound like I don't like the people at school. I just want to give the disclaimer here that I love the teachers. Teachers, for the most part, are amazing people. There are exceptions, but they're amazing people who have devoted their life to getting paid a lot less to do really hard work because it's meaningful to them when your child learns. The people who I don't like, and not across the board, because I've met some amazing administrators. We were just talking about this the other day, that there is an administrator that we want to send a graduation announcement when my son graduates in 2 months, because we want her to see how all the work that she did helped him to be able to graduate from college. But a lot of times, and I've worked in schools, a lot of times the middle of the road administrators are people who needed to make more money and didn't enjoy teaching. And so now they're being in charge of the money that there isn't enough of. And it makes them not nice people to deal with. It just does. Okay. Can I provide an example of a social goal? Absolutely. So for instance, we look at what is the child struggling with? Are they struggling with approaching a friend and say, hey, do you want to play a game on the playground? Or are we at lunchtime and the child doesn't talk to anybody else or doesn't respond to anybody else? So let's say that it's each one of those. So let's say that the child isn't responding to anybody at lunch. Then we would put a goal saying that they will have an exchange, a back and forth exchange by the end of the year of 4 back and forths. So that means that in 9 months, they have to be doing 3 back and forths. In 6 months, they have to be doing 2 back and forths. In this month, they need to be doing 1, answering 1 question and nothing further. And our baseline is right now, they're not responding at all. If it's the one on the playground, Jem had a goal that first the goal was that one year it was that he had to go to a student and invite them to play a game with him. And then he got that, he mastered that. And so later on in the year, the goal was that he had to learn what to do when they say no. Like, do you try to fix it or do you go to another child? So that by the end of the play period, he needed to find 1 friend to play at least 1 game. So, and each year and really more, sometimes he would fly through these goals and we would change it already before the year ended. He got to the point where he didn't need this goal anymore, which is the goal, right? Okay, so hopefully that helps. Services. So at a certain point, you're going to get to the services page and they're going to outline for you exactly what they're going to give your child that is outside of the, what's considered special education. So your services could be that you have speech and they'll say how many minutes. Oh, it's crazy the way they do it. Because sometimes they will say, we're entitling your child to 2,000 minutes across the entire year. And what that works out to be is half an hour a week, right? So you always want to be clear with them about, no matter, because it's part of how it's like buying a car, right? That they're like, oh, well, we're selling you a car for this, but then you look at the interest rate and it's thousands more, right? Always ask them to give it to you both ways so that you know how many minutes per week, but that you know what the total number is. And the reason why you do that is so that they don't lose any minutes, because a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, we're giving you this many minutes, but they don't schedule it for the first 2 weeks, right? Or they schedule it on Mondays and there's a lot of holidays on Mondays. If they get to the end of the year and they didn't reach the full amount, they owe you compensatory education for that. And you can track it, and then suddenly they have to pay for a speech and language pathologist over the summer. Well, these are not bad things. Is there a place that I can search for available services or assessments? I feel like I know what my child's needs, yet I don't know how to ask for it. And I don't know what services or assessments are available. I could use it as a reference. Does such a thing exist? Okay, there's a couple of things. First of all, there's an amazing resource that's called the Parent Center Hub. And I literally think that it's that website, Parent Center Hub, that you can go to. That's free. It's a free resource. It's in every state right now. I don't know where it's going to be. I don't know. It's a government entity. So, I don't know if it'll be cut, but use it right now. Avail yourself of their services. So you go to their website. It says, find your center, find the one that's right for you. They have ones that are different languages. It depends on your state. And then call them, but they have a schedule of events and things and classes that you can take so that you can become a really top-notch advocate for your child. You can ask them about all kinds of assessments. They are there to be there for you. It's a free service. So I really recommend that you try that first because it's free and I know it's in every single state. The other one that I really love is Skills, Skills for Autism. And skillsforautism.com, but it's not free. There is a monthly subscription to it, but there are assessments that you can sit and take all the assessments, and then it shows you graphs about here's where your child's skill levels are on all these different things, and then you can look up the lessons and do the benchmarks. It's a little bit, it's like Disneyland. There's so much of it that, and it creates BIPs, it does all of these things. And a lot of professionals and schools use it already. But for a parent, it's like Disneyland. You walk in and you're like, I can't do all this in one day. And it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And I always say to parents, if you're going to do skills, go in and go, here's what I want to accomplish. And it might just be taking the assessment, which might take you a couple of weeks. to be able to do. Don't try to do it all at the same time. If you just want to know, like you already know what lesson your child is and you just want to get the IEP benchmarks, then you go in and you go, this is how I want to find this. But those are the two that I highly, highly recommend for what it is that you're talking about. So services, let's just talk about what are some usual services that school provides. OT and speech. Every single one of you that has a kiddo on the autism spectrum should get that from the school. Now, it may come with a price tag because, not that you're going to pay for it, you should never be paying for any of these services, but they'll set a time during the day when the speech teacher is going to come, take your child, leave the classroom and go to the speech room. Well, now they lose 10 minutes walking to the speech room, plus the hour that they're there and the 10 minutes that they come back. How much school did they miss? And what did they miss? And here's the rub with this, that, a lot of times parents will say, I don't want you to take my child during core academics. Fair thing to say, and to put that on there and say, my child's already behind. I don't want them to get further behind. My son was failing math and he was so good at math. And I was like, I don't understand. And then somebody said, oh, well, the speech teacher changed the time and they're picking him up and he's not here for the math lesson. What? What do you do? You can't do that. It's in the IEP that you can't do that. And I make them write that in, that you can't take him during core academics. But then when do they take them? They take them at times when they're doing something artistic, like they're doing the art stuff, or they're doing music, or they're doing a game. So now you're taking them during social and creative time, which would be good for your child. So you got to make a decision for yourself about when and how you want this. Now, I asked for the bylaws of my school, because that's how I roll, and looked at, for the services, what the choices were. And it says service from my school. I think they've changed it now because I did this. For school, the services have to be provided during school hours. Well, if you contact the school and say, what are school hours? They say we open at 7:00 and we close an hour and a half after. Oh, well, those are school hours. So I would ask for speech and OT services to happen not during class time at all. I was very unpopular for that. They really didn't like me. Guess who cares? Not me. That worked for a couple of years. Then I will say, when my child was a little bit older and had a little bit more speech, I requested, and a lot of schools have this, that they do, at our school, we called it lunch bunch. And it is a time when kids on the spectrum and neurotypical friends join for this very special group where they play a game while they're eating lunch. They have social time, and there are one or two speech people who help facilitate conversations, because that's really what you want, is social peer one-to-one. You can ask for these things, right? You can also ask for, depending on your child's skill level, at a certain point, it was very beneficial for my child to leave the classroom to go for OT, right? But at a certain point, it wasn't. And so we asked, there's a difference between a pull out and a push in. Pull out means the services come and take your child and they walk to another place with them, right? And your child is gone from the classroom. Push in means your child is in the classroom. The OT comes and helps your child with whatever the skill that they're doing right there is. And there's a time and a place when that is appropriate. But you have to think about what's right for your child. Just know that those are possibilities. Now, other add-ins that people have gotten, sometimes people get APE, which is adaptive physical education. Your child should still be going to the PE class that's with the other kids unless they really physically can't, or it's too much sensory wise. But APE is time for them to catch up on some of the coordination skills. Again, I used to ask for that a half an hour before school. You find that a lot of kids are being dropped off early. It ended up being this amazing time with the APE teacher that all these kids were like, can I play too? And it was a social time. Fantastic. And he was learning all kinds of coordination stuff and crossing the midline, which is great for our kids' cognition. Other things that you might get at one point, I came in and asked for a goal on the playground, and they said, "Oh, would you like a recreational assessment?" I said, "A what?" And they did a recreational assessment, saw that he needed help and support. So they brought in a recreational aide who would come in and consult with the teacher and do things with the whole class. At the end of the year, they all thanked me and said this was so productive for all of the kids. So that's a thing you can ask for too. I'm trying to think about what are some of the other things. The big one. Having a one-to-one aide or having any kind of an aide. This would be under services, an instructional aide. Schools call it different things. And a lot of times if you ask for it now, they will say, oh, we need to do an assessment for that. My big thing is say, that's fine. I'm happy to sign up for the assessment. But in the interest of safety, can we please have it for the 6 weeks that it take you to do the assessment? It's very hard when the tape recorders are going if you said safety and have a backup reason for them to say no. And once you have an aide in the classroom, the teacher never wants to let them go. I almost always counsel parents and say, don't go in and ask for an aide for the whole year. Ask for it for 6 weeks and then a reevaluation. It's much easier to get it that way. Anna says, can I request that I have a right to change by updating FB or removing pics from my son's AAC device? We had a situation where his AAC broke in the summer and the school was closed. And since it was locked, I was unable to reset and do anything. So we had no device for 2 weeks. That is absolutely stunningly horrible, Anna. I don't know if that would go in the IEP, but I certainly would want to put it in there. And I would want to ask for a year-round consultant, that phone number or somebody that you could get a hold of if something is not working with his AAC device. I would start there. But then I would also say to them, this would be much easier if you just let me be able to make changes and see what they go for. But for sure, because that's inappropriate that you were left with nothing. That makes me want to cry. That's really, really terrible. And someone should be there all summer long. There should be at least one secretary. That's horrible. But yes, I would push them and see what they're willing to do to see what you can get. Okay, let's go on from the services. Setting. Okay, this is one that may come first, may come in the middle, may come last. But at some point, they have to tell you what the setting is that they have chosen for your child. Is your child in a special day class and they're there all day long? Are they in a completely mainstream class and they're there all day long? Or is it some sort of hybrid in between? And usually you are going to see that they're going to say that it's some sort of hybrid in between. This is where you want to really read between the lines hard, because a lot of times what they say is, well, your child is going to go to a special day class 80% of the time, but the other 20%, they're going to be with the general population. And what we find out is that that's lunchtime and that's recess when they have no supports. Let me just say that is not appropriate. If your child needs a more than a 30-to-1 support in the classroom, they for sure need more than 120-to-1 support during lunchtime and recess. It's a hard one, but if you say safety and you have a goal, they really can't get around that. So know what the setting is. I find a lot of times when I talk to a parent and I say, what kind of setting is your child in at school? They have an idea of what they think it is. And then I get the IEP and it's not what it says on the IEP. So this is a page to be up on and to know. And you have to decide what your comfort level is. It's different at every school. I used to always argue for mainstream. And then a wonderful expert said to me, Shannon, that's because you're thinking that every school knows how to do inclusion and they don't. And, the truth of the matter is that inclusion isn't right for everybody, but it's right for a lot more people than get the opportunities. So, we always want to be looking for how can we make the most of these opportunities, but don't allow it to be without support. And that's what schools, they always are like, oh, they'll go in the gen ed classroom and that's when their aide will take a break. No. Okay. So setting is important. Moving on to number 9. Here is where I think it's the page that everybody looks at the least, and I think it's the most important page of the IEP. It's the LRE page, and it's its own page. Look for it in your child's IEP. But it is where they legally have to make the argument that for why the placement that they have set your child and the setting that we just talked about, why that is appropriate. Because legally, and if you read the page, it outlines it all. And it says your child has a right to the least restrictive environment in which they can have a floor of opportunity to access the curriculum with the right supports. So what I see a lot of times is, on this page, they'll be like, they'll say one thing because they have to legally, but on every other page it says something different. They'll say, oh, he's so capable. He's so, he can do this, he can do that. But on this page, they're like, oh, no. He can't possibly do that. He's got to be in the most restrictive environment. When, if all the things that they said on the other pages were correct, then it is the perfect case for a one-to-one aid in a mainstream class. I find arguments for parents on this page more than any other page because they're saying different things. So definitely read that page. And if you're going to go get support from an advocate or a lawyer, I would start with this page with them. They will learn a lot based on what it says on this page, what the argument is for why they're putting your child in the classroom that they're putting them in. Okay, let's go on to number 10. Okay, ESY, which stands for Extended School Year. So there is a page where they will say, does your child qualify for ESY? Now, I used to teach summer school. Summer school is for one reason. It is to make sure that your child learned what happened in the previous year and that they don't regress. There are rules about they do not have to offer your child extended school year if the expectation is that your child will not lose more than 20% of what they learned during the school year. Okay. I'm seeing this trend where they, across the board, especially with new kids that are like kindergartners, where we're seeing them say, oh, the child doesn't qualify for this because we don't have a baseline of what they might lose. So we're just going to assume that they won't lose it. And I just want to say to you, in almost all cases, you should be able to win ESY for your child to go to school. But I also want to caution you, a lot of times this is not what's most appropriate for your child. If you have the opportunity during the summer to do a more robust ABA program, if you have the opportunity to be doing socializing, instead of doing ESY, I would tell you to figure out ask the teacher, what are the biggest concepts from this year that my child learned? And then work on those with your child during the summer. You will get further than you would with ESY. I think it's not a waste of time. It's not always the most productive choice for our kids. All the other kids, well, not all of them, but most of the other kids are taking the summer off and outside and doing all kinds of things and physically and socially and whatever. And they're losing at least 10% of what they learned in the school year. And when you come back in the new school year, the first 6 weeks are just review from last year. It's just review because those neurotypical kids have lost 10%, right? So I really feel like it's like the tortoise and the hare, and the summer is an opportunity for your child to move ahead. ESY is not going to move them ahead. It's going to make sure that they maintain. And I feel like if you're an amazing parent, you're going to be able to do this in your sleep, really, or there's something more productive. So you can win ESY if you want, because their argument is so not bulletproof, but I'm not sure you want to. But I want you to note where it is. Okay. Now let's go on to the next one. Now we're at the point, once they've gone through all of this at the meeting, now they'll say, do you have anything you'd like to say? Oh my gosh, right? This is when you're so beat up and you're like, oh, I've had to remember. This is when you pull out the letter and you just read it. And you will find maybe if you have 12 things on the letter, maybe 6 of them already got answered. Doesn't matter. You give the praise to the people who in the letter that you're praising, and then you say, here are the things that are important to us. There will be at least a couple of things in the letter that are not in their offer of faith. And you know what that does? In a minute, they're going to say, so do you want to sign the IEP, whatever, but you've already given your response. Now they have to have a separate meeting and come back to you with a response. You've jumped ahead 2 spaces by giving them your response right there. This is an amazing, amazing thing to do. And I've seen what it did for me. I got more out of my IEPs, and I can remember having a panic attack when we left an IEP because it had been so stressful for me for the week before. Once I started doing the letter, that didn't happen. I just read the letter. I can read something. And then you don't have that thing where later on you go, oh, I forgot to say this. Why did I? No, it's in the letter. So you give them your response. Okay, go on to the next one, because now they're going to say to you, and you sign the letter in front of them and say, here's my response, right? And then they have this awkward moment where they don't really know what to do. And they go, okay, so we're done for now. And because usually they are. Sometimes they'll negotiate a little bit right there, but mostly you're done because it's late now. And they'll say, so we need you to sign the IEP. And you, of course, say to them, I am happy to sign attendance, but I won't be signing the IEP today. And I'm going to beg and plead with you that no matter what, even if it was the most brilliant IEP in the world and in the room, they promised you everything and a cow, don't sign it. Because there is a written record of what happened, and you need to, at the very least, read and see that what got said is what's on the page. Because it isn't, my friends. There is no one that working at the school who is a licensed court reporter, and I guarantee you there's at least one mistake somewhere in that report. And it could cost your child so much. So don't do it. Any lawyer will tell you don't sign it. There is a attendance page, and you sign attendance. And then you go home and you take it home. Now, you've already given them their letter. So there's a bunch of things that happen now. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so what's next? If you're like me, you brought snacks. And that's the time when they can eat them. They can't eat them before. They're not allowed to eat them before. I hate that. Your school might be different. But, make sure that sometimes they take the snacks with them. They're so appreciated. Take snacks, right? Now, they might start negotiating with you in the room, but you really want to push for negotiation in writing. The smart person will wait until you've turned off the tape recorders, and then they'll try to negotiate with you. Somebody tries to do that, you very quickly need to go home and send an email, say, as per our conversation, after we turned off the tape recorders, when you said to me that you would be happy to, can I get that in writing, please? Right? And really try to keep negotiation in writing. Because that's the only thing that matters. They can speak to you and promise you $1 million, but if you don't have it in writing, it means nothing. You have the right to agree to all or just certain parts of the IEP. So if you find that there are like 5 things in the IEP that you're really excited about, there is a place where you can say that. Where you sign the IEP, it says, I agree to all parts, or these parts you can fill this in. There is also a place for notes where you can say whatever you want in it. You can say, I don't appreciate that this happened, and that stays part of your child's record. So if you're signing something under duress, say, I don't agree with this, but I'm going to go along with this, but I want this reevaluated. Put whatever you want in the notes. I didn't know that for years until Bonnie taught me that. It's possible that at this point, you may not agree with the reports. And if you don't, then you certainly have the right to ask for an independent educational evaluation, which won't be done by anybody at the school. They will give you a list of people that they recommend. You will not choose those people. You will find the people that you choose, and that's who they'll have to have, and they pay for it. You don't pay for it. Or is there another evaluation that needs to happen? Maybe now you need to have the recreational aid. Maybe now you need to have the SKIA, which is to see if they qualify for a one-on-one aid. But let's be clear about that and get that in writing. If we get to a point where we're at a stale, and you want to keep putting the ball back in their court as quickly as possible. If they write to you and they go, well, we could do this, that, and the other, and you write back 10 minutes later and you say, Okay, ball is back in your court. Just constantly be putting it back to them. But if you find at any point you get to stalemate, you have the right to file for due process. Listen, the school has the right to file for that too. I am the only person that I know in all the years that I've been doing this that has ever had the school file due process against them. And they've done it to me twice. But I know that the reason why they did it to me was because they knew I was a loudmouth. I had a radio show. They knew I was going to talk to people and they didn't want me to talk to people. When you file due process, either side, the first step is that you have to go to mediation. And mediation is closed door and they can offer you something, but they can put a gag order on you that you are not allowed to talk about it, which may or may not have been my situation legally. Right? They like to get you in that room so that they can make deals. Very few people go to due process. I will tell you that it swings both ways. Where it swings right now is that most people win at due process. Make sure that you're working with a lawyer at that point who is excited to go in and ask for lawyer fees. You'll have to pay them something up front, but if you win, school, you make sure that your lawyer asks for lawyer fees, school will pay them and you get your money back, right? But very few people get to due process. You'll work very hard to solve it before that. And if you don't, you get to mediation and you solve it. But if you have to go to due process, do not go without a lawyer. I don't know anyone who has ever won due process without legal support. That's a lot, you guys. But hopefully that helps you to know. Now, I do want to say that the best advice I ever got was from a dad. I was going to an IEP meeting and he saw that I was stressed. And he said, "What's going on?" I said, I'm going to an IEP meeting. And it was when things were already good, but it was still that, why do we have to be contentious? Why do I have to be on? Why do I have to feel like I'm being attacked? And like, why do I need to be worried? And he could see this. And this dad said to me, "Oh, no, you're forgetting it's all kabuki theater." And I have a master's degree in theater, so I know what kabuki theater is. But kabuki theater is when you put on a mask and you portray big emotions, but you're not feeling that as the actor. You're just portraying those big emotions, right? And the mask is reading anger, and the mask is reading disappointment, whatever, or grief or whatever. He says, no, you just put on the mask. You don't have to be angry. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. You're going to win. It's on your side. You don't have to just go in and put on a performance. And the performance is, I'm in charge. I know what's happening. You're going to do what's right by my child. You don't have to get angry. And that to me set me free. I also want to remind everybody that, sometimes we beat ourselves down and go, but I don't know. I've never been to an IEP meeting before. I don't know. Yeah, except that you're an amazing parent and you're going to learn, and it's not like you're ever going to quit. So if something happens and it doesn't go your way and you go, oh, I wished I'd known that, please forgive yourself, because beating yourself down with that, and listen, I'm great at saying this, not great at doing it. I'm still upset about the grade when he was there the whole year and I'm like, I should have taken him out, right? But I will say, as much as I still angst about that, I got busy with what are we doing now and how are we going to make the next grade better? And that's really where you got to keep your mindset. Okay, that didn't go well, but game not over, right? What are we going to do now? I love, there's a speaker who says, when a plane takes off from Los Angeles and it's going to New York, it's always doing course corrections. It's almost all the time a little bit off the course. So it just notices and it course corrects. That's really what you're doing as a parent until you get to the point where your child doesn't have an IEP anymore, either because they've graduated or they don't need it, right? Little course corrections. Okay, we tried that. That didn't work. What are we going to do now? Okay, now we're going to try this. We're going to do that. And you will get there. You're amazing. You just sat through this hour and 13-minute thing about IEPs because you're an amazing parent. And you're there for your child, being your child's best advocate. So I can tell you, your child's going to be okay. And you're going to find the way. And if you find that the school is not going to work with you, there does come a time when you have to choose, am I going to go all in on this school and I'm going to teach them something, but my child may lose time? Or am I going to go someplace else and go to another school? I've seen people move because a school is just being that difficult. And then I've also seen other parents say, no, it stops here with me. And I'm prepared. I'm not working this year. And this principal is going to learn. We're here. If you have it in you and you feel that you can do it, I just caution you, don't make yourself sick. There are good people who want to educate your child. Yes, Anna says, I also think sometimes we have PTSD from other IEPs in the past. No doubt, Anna. Oh my gosh. I believe I still have PTSD all these years later. My son's graduating from college. And you see how I get about these different things because it's hard to let it go. It's hard to let it go. And it is trauma. It is trauma. So what do we do about that? We have to take care of ourselves. I think having a sense of humor, can I tell you the thing that I did was when my son was in high school, I did a one-woman comedy show at the Hollywood Fringe, and there was a part in it. I think we've aired it on this show during the podcast-a-thon, where it's an IEP meeting, and it's me playing all of the characters, and the camera goes from one person to the other, and it's me doing really ridiculous caricatures of the very real people who were at the IEP meetings with me that I had frustrations with. And, I enjoyed that with every fiber of my being. If there is a way that you can find humor in it, if there is a way that you can write or paint or draw or something to get it out of you so that you can go on to the next thing, I don't think it's ever gone, right? But I think it helps. I also regularly practiced, and it was part of the one woman show that I would read some of the letters that I wrote. Even now, there was one letter I remember I was so mad that I sat down, and usually I say dear, and then I do explicatives, right? And it was so incendiary. It was so mean. It was so cruel what I wrote on the paper that I stopped and I looked at it and I busted out laughing. And I can't think about those 4 women that I was writing that letter to without smiling now, because I had said this really inappropriate thing, which I then read in my, thank you, Carrie. Carrie says, best comedy show ever. You should go on tour again. We talked about filming it at one point, and I don't know. I just don't know. But I have to tell you, it changes your DNA about that circumstance. That one I don't carry with me anymore, because every time I think about it, I laugh about how mean. I mean, it's just above and beyond. It's just not what I would ever say to anybody. And I never sent that letter, but then I read it in front of people and they enjoyed it with me. Do you know what I'm saying? Find the outlet for you. I go in the garden and I rip weeds out. And when I'm ripping out the weeds, I'm talking to my plants and I'm talking to the weeds and I'm imagining they're people who have not been nice to my child. Do you know? Very therapeutic. Very therapeutic, and I'm not hurting anybody. My neighbors all think I'm crazy, but that's okay. Right? I talk to the birds, and they come in, the squirrels and whatnot, and I talk to the weeds and I talk to the plants, and sometimes I use swear words. Do whatever you need to do. I know good friends who, bless them, they work out, they run, and when they run, they're letting it go. Man, I wish that I had the ability to do that. Find what works for you. Because at the end of the day, even though the trauma is real, there's stuff that's happening now. And what we want to be is the best possible advocate for our child in any given moment, right? So when we're in the past, we're not. So find something that works for you and then share it with other people. Because maybe the thing that works for you, because if it's not one of the things that I just listed, maybe the thing that works for you is what everybody else on this that's here watching, maybe they need to hear that. So be kind to yourself. Whenever you do an IEP, I think it's important to have some sort of a celebration afterwards, even just for the meetings. Even like Judy, you're on your 3rd one to just get this IEP done. Like after each meeting, make sure that you're doing something kind for yourself, because you're a warrior. You're a literal warrior going in there and fighting for your kids, right? But then when you get that thing signed, oh, we had IEP parties all the time where it's like, woohoo, it's like buying a house, it's one of the biggest legal documents you'll ever be a part of, and it's every year. Yeah, give yourself a reward, something that's meaningful to you. I did this. I was there for my child. Put your shoulders back, like we talked about the other day. Take a deep breath and go, I showed up and I did this. Your friends who are not doing IEPs, they're not going to understand, but I do. And so do the other people who are listening. It's a thing. It's a thing. And someday, maybe we'll get to the point, who was it? Amy, who said that she has really good IEPs. And I said to you, I know Fullerton, they have good IEPs. Maybe someday we'll get to the point where we all have good IEPs. Let's hope. Let us hope. My friends, it has been so good to be here with you for this hour and 20 minutes. I do need to go. We're back next week. We've got amazing programming to round out March for you. And we're pre-taping all those April shows. Ooh, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Please do check out. Right now we have the auction that's going on. It closes tomorrow night. It's on Max Sold. It's on my Facebook. If you know my Facebook, it's also on the Autism Live Facebook. We're selling some of the things that we're not taking with us to the new studio. So there's some good stuff, you guys. And a lot of people have been bidding, but there's still some great deals in there. Get yourself something. You do need to pick it up in the Los Angeles area on Sunday. But I will be here. It's a great opportunity to meet me and my son and my husband. We'll all be here helping people to get their auction items and go. We will be moving in April. So you're going to see there's going to be some interesting transitions as we get moved. But we have the show. The show will continue because we are pre-taping. So anyway, I'm sending you lots of love. We'll see you on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Do something nice for yourself today to celebrate what an amazing parent you are. Okay? Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.